Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time. Hello, and welcome to Downsizing Roadmap podcast. Today, we're going to talk about timing the market versus timing your life. And sometimes I think people get caught up in oh, the market's not quite right, and not think, I'm ready. This is what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that people are looking for that crystal ball to know the exact right time, not only in this instance in life, but in so much. We wish we had that crystal ball.
Mm-hmm. I say that all the time. Gosh, if I had that crystal ball,
yeah.
I'd be a millionaire.
Right. We would use it for
for all of our people. We would use it for
things.
good.
All the things. Good, of course.
Yes,
of course.
but we don't have it.
We don't have it. I mean, we're both experienced realtors, have been in the real estate market for a long time. But even with all of that experience, we do not have that future look of what the market's going to look like next week or next year. So if the real estate agents out there can't time the market or tell you that perfect time, kind of difficult for someone else to just look at what they're hearing on the news and reading in the paper and try to time the market. So
we'll give you some good ideas and tips on what that is in this episode. So I'm Jody Roscoe.
I'm Heather Fisher.
And I think that what we hear often is, I want to move, but right? So
yes.
I want to move, but. So it's, the interest rates aren't they're too high, they're too low. They're never too low, but they're too high, whatever. I'm not sure that the timing is right because the economy may seem a little uncertain, or we're not going to know what's going on in this or that.
It's an election year.
Yeah.
It's school hasn't ended. School just started.
Right.
The holidays are coming.
Right. The holidays were just here. Whatever it is.
All the things.
Yes.
Home prices are high.
Right.
Interest rates and home prices are the two biggies that none of us can predict, but are of concern for all of us to watch and do our best.
So what I can say about that is, if you looked at what the price of your house was 10 years ago, you would buy it, bought it 10 years ago, right? Yeah. And so you can't really look at the real estate market or the stock market. I mean, all of the markets are the same, right? Is there going to be a high? Yes. Is there going to be a low? Yes. Is it going to go up from 10 years ago till now? Very likely. If you look historically over what's happened in the real estate market, it has always gone up, but it does not go up in a straight line. And if you could see my arm, because I use my arm all the time as my straight diagonal line up, and then my finger is going up and down over my arm, right? And sometimes it's a little bit above that line, and sometimes it's a little bit below that line. But the line is always going up. The market just doesn't go in a straight line. It kind of zigzags up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so whatever choice you're making, I mean, if you're living in a house that you've lived in for 30 years or 20 years or 40 years, you made that decision, and that decision has paid off. And so whatever that next decision is, if you live there long enough, it will likely pay off. And even if you don't, and it's even or not, you're already ahead, right? You're already ahead from where you started.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that oftentimes in conversation, people are pinpointed on one of the factors instead of the whole math problem. Have you gained equity in the house that you're in? Have you lived there and used it, and did it serve its purpose? And that was just the cost of having a place to live and gaining some money. Have you, just gotten that full picture? Does the math and the timing work on all of it together instead of narrowing in on one of the factors that might not be feeling like the perfect time?
Mm-hmm. And, we joke as realtors, we say the best time to buy a house was 10 years ago and the next best time is today, right?
Yeah.
Because 10 years from now, you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have made that move, whatever that is. And so, and even if you're not moving into, a next house, maybe you're going to, rent or move into a community or do something different. But if you're moving from one house to the next house, it's in the long haul, it's not going to be a bad time. And if you're just selling your current house, we still have all the equity that we've gained. We've gained a huge amount of equity in our houses in the last 5 years, and that's all still in there for you to realize when you sell.
Yeah, so many people, they're waiting for something that may never be perfect. They're waiting for perfect, but there won't be a perfect,
right.
And so more importantly, what makes your personal situation the right timing?
Correct.
Much more important to look at than the timing of the market.
And I think sometimes when we hear these reasons, because it's not just downsizing people who give us these reasons, but I think that's fear talking, right? And they're afraid they're either going to make a mistake. It's a big purchase, it's a big sale. They're either going to make a mistake or they're not sure what's going to come next and they're feeling uneasy about what's coming next. And so then there's all the reasons, which I might say, if you're really going to be honest with yourself, maybe excuses of reasons why you can't do this. There's too much competition for the buyers. I can't get a house I want. There's, whatever it is. It may be, and that may be true, but there are people who are getting houses. And if you hire an experienced realtor who knows how to handle the market, they will help you navigate whatever that looks like. If you're in Dayton, please reach out to us. If you're not, reach out to us anyways, downsizingroadmap.com. We can connect you with an experienced agent that can give you that
Guidance,
expertise.
Yeah.
And so whatever's happening in the market, does that make it challenging? Potentially, but that doesn't make it impossible. And if it's your right time and it's your right time, then that all can be handled.
Yeah, and exactly that is why we're able to sell your home at any time of year and, any year. Homes will sell because there are timing things in life that cause buyers and sellers at all times. So if everybody was waiting, nothing would be happening. The fact that people are going based on their life events and their life timing is what keeps the market moving at all times.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, even the experts can't, they don't see what's happening. They all told us that the market was going to crash during COVID, and we all know what happened. It just soared, right? Yeah. And so in the last few years, we've gained like 24%, other areas have gained even more. It is local, real estate is local, but, sales prices have risen dramatically in the last few years. And at the beginning of COVID, they were saying, that was going to be terrible for the real estate market and all that. So even the experts don't always have, the right answers on that stuff. So, what we're saying in essence is don't wait to really look at for the market to do something. And when you're looking at your house, if buying and selling, if you're selling, it's high right now. Like, we have gained all that equity. So it's a great time to sell. If you're buying, it's also a good time to sell because of what might happen in the future. But we're looking at inventory is probably not going to change a lot coming in the future because we just have too many buyers and not enough sellers. And that may change sometime in the future for whatever reasons. But economically, we're not seeing that change because what happened the last time when the housing market did actually crash, there were no building of houses for 5 or 6 years. There were no new builds of houses because the lenders wouldn't lend to builders and people weren't buying, and it was there was just a whole huge time bracket where not many houses were built.
Yeah, that gap has not been made up.
We're realizing the gap.
Yeah.
We didn't feel it right away, but now we are definitely feeling it, and that gap hasn't been made up.
Yeah.
Even with the new build starts that we've had in the last few years. So that has created supply and demand issues, right? So not enough houses for the number of people that we need.
Yeah, there's several factors pushing on that. You have millennials that are jumping into, their careers and able to buy their first home, have that income to try to do that earlier. There's just more people in the market on that end as that big group of millennials are jumping in. And then we have, all of us getting older, but we're living longer, we're staying in our homes longer. And so that inventory is not flipping back down, in that circle quite as quickly. Along with that gap in building new houses, we just have more people that are in the housing market. And
Right.
It's tight.
Right. And then we have companies. We have big REITs, big real estate investment companies that are buying up homes as rental homes. And so they are buying a lot of the starter homes, the kind of less expensive homes, because that's where they can make a better profit margin. And so home buyers are competing against big corporations that are buying up houses as rentals. So it used to be that the interest rate really, really affected the buyer, whether it was a buyer's market or a seller's market. And it does affect it, but there are so many other pressures against what's going on there too. And for new builds, part of why there aren't as many new builds, you used to be able to choose between a new build house and an existing property, and they were, so maybe a little bit higher in price, but you could definitely comparable in price. They are not comparable in price anymore, especially in the first-time home buyer, bracket of pricing, because the costs of all of the materials has gone up so much since COVID. So inflation in the marketplace means windows and doors and all of that stuff is so much more expensive. Inflation in your house translates to equity, right? So it can be a good and bad thing, right? So when the government's trying to, slow down that inflation, we're also, we're also leveling off the home prices, right? Because that they're not, going up quite as high. So, but all of the equity that the inflation caused is still in your houses right now.
Yeah, I think one big takeaway, and Jody said it before on other episodes, and we've talked about it, but with this pressure on the inventory that we have, the best time to get started downsizing, and by started, I mean handling the obstacles in front of a move, your stuff, your plans, your financial paperwork, all of that, the best time to do that is early, so that when those limited options, when something great comes along, that is the perfect opportunity, you are ready because you've done the other steps. It is higher pressure on you if you want or need to make a quick move into another house, not a community. There's plenty to choose from of senior living communities, but if you're looking for something in the housing market, be ready, because when it comes up, you need to be able to move quickly or it will be gone.
Yeah. And we definitely do not, at least here in our area, have enough single story ranch home, that are downsizing homes that people are looking for. In
a downsizing price point, which people, would love to, in many instances, downsize that payment or the cost of the home along with the size.
Right.
And the new construction does not do that.
That is something that's a different mindset change too to think about, is that it did used to be you're going to take your big house and you're going to trade it for a smaller house that's going to be less money. Well, this time you might just trade it for a similar priced house that is right sizing, right? You're just changing it into a ranch with maybe a basement, or maybe just no basement, maybe just a ranch or a condo or whatever that looks like, but it may not be a whole lot less money than your big house. And sometimes that's hard to wrap your mind around, that the space should, cost more. And sometimes it just doesn't, especially if the one you're buying is newer, more updated.
Yeah.
You may be looking at something that's similar, but it's still okay because it's basically you're taking, your equity and you're putting it from one place to another place and letting it continue to be there and grow, right? And so that's like moving it from one bank account to another bank account. And so you just have to decide what feels good and what is going to, make your life easier and what kind of place you want to be in. And if you're just taking that going from one place to the next place, you still have it in a safe, place that you're investing it.
Yeah, if you're just looking at the math on square footage, you might be uncomfortable with what that looks like. But if you're factoring in the safety and the security and the ease of daily living that you are gaining, that whole package is well worth every dollar, just to transfer that from something that's not working for you to something that makes your life just so much easier and future planning.
And I think another thing that we get a lot as a fear or a question is, what if the market goes down? Because if you're listening to the news, no matter where you're getting it, the news is never going to be good. It's always going to be, these bad things are happening and this bad thing is coming next. And, that's, I feel like, where the news thrives in, making us fearful of what might be coming next. And so if by chance, we do have a downturn in the housing market, whatever level you are at will be equal, right? So if you bought high and sold high, or you bought low and sold low, it's going to be the same. It's going to be a rare occasion when you are on that exact precipice of,
I want the best of both worlds.
You bought low and you sold high, and that is some very, very rare little magical unicorn time, pace and time that will happen. But mostly what happens is the prices equal out, right? So if you're buying high, you're also selling high. If you're buying low, you're also selling low. And so as much as we would want to time out that, and I think that happens more in stocks than it does in housing. Housing doesn't move quite as quickly, usually. Sometimes there can be, some quick moves, but usually not. And so again, like it's really usually going to even out.
Yeah. Yeah. You're waiting for the one to go down and you waited all that time and then, interest rates went down, but now all the buyers that were also waiting came out of the woodwork. So competition is even tighter on everything. And
prices go up.
Prices go way up and you didn't gain anything except you didn't have that time in your new home making life easier.
And, we've definitely had people who, missed their market where they now the house that they wanted is out of their range. Right. And so,
I mean, personally, I, sold a house in 2020, but before everything skyrocketed from COVID, it was, early in that. So I sold at, a price that I had gained equity because I'd been there a long time, but I missed, I still get the email updates on the old address and, cringe at like, oh my gosh, if I would have waited a year or two as prices skyrocketed, that would have been, a wonderful bonus, but it didn't fit my timeline of what I needed. And we just built and had to shift that timeline because building prices changed and, all of that, but I wouldn't change the end result. Over time, we're ahead because we met every timeline we wanted to, and we're where we need to be for our family situation and our plans for the future. So you just don't know. I was thrilled when I sold my house in 2020, like, oh my gosh, I got all this equity from what the price I had bought it at, 20 years before. I was thrilled. You can't look back and be like, oh, if I would have waited. You just don't know. The opposite could have happened with COVID too.
Right.
Where I would have lost out, and you just cannot predict that.
Correct. So what's more important then is to really focus, instead of like what's going on in the market, what's more important is to focus on what's the timing of your life and what's happening in your life And are you actually ready to make that move? Because that's going to make a big impact on the quality of your life, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that you are looking for? Make yourself a list. Is it less stairs? Is it less maintenance? Do you want to move out of the area? You want to live closer to your family? Do you want to, split that into, sometimes I want two places, right? I want a beach house, beach condo, and I want to, stay close to the family half the year, or whatever that looks like. Stop paying heat and electricity and dusting rooms that we don't use, and all of that. Stop mowing the lawn and weeding the 1,000 garden beds you thought was such a great idea when you put them in, and loved that, but now it's it's time for that to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Common turning points where people start thinking about downsizing, regardless of what the market's doing. Sometimes a health scare, sometimes the loss of a spouse or your partner. Your kids have moved to a different location and settled, and you want to be closer. Or you just have that fatigue on upkeep of the home. But these start going into more of the critical, I want to do this now, especially the loss of a spouse or a health scare. So you can really, when you're timing things, you can be ready much sooner than that and start that thought process. So you're not waiting for these things.
Yeah, and you don't want to be making choices out of crisis. And so some of that pops up. You get a health scare, you're fine until you aren't, right? And then you're like, whoa, hold on. And so, you're like, okay, now we need to make some different choices. But some of it you might be able to see coming. And so if that's where you're at, make those choices sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Make that plan and be dreamy about it.
So here's a thought. If the market just stayed exactly as it was for 5 years, so you knew for sure that that's what was happening and you aren't going to get anything different, would you want to move? Ask yourself a question like that. Are you actually waiting for the market, or is there a different underlying hurdle that you need to figure out?
Yeah, I think it gives an easy excuse to delay decisions, but that final answer is never going to come as to when will interest rates be at their lowest. I don't know. If they went down, is that the lowest, or do you wait more? Mm-hmm. When will housing prices come down? If they dip a little, are they going to dip a lot, or are they going to go right back up? We just don't know.
And the market is, whether it's the stock market or the housing market, time inside the market is, there's a quote, time in the market beats timing in the market, right? So it's just the consistency of being there. It's just the compounding interest or compounding equity, whatever that looks like. So being in it is better than being out of it. And so.
Yeah. I think what you said earlier about the news too, about being just kind of a dramatic doomsday sometimes, and being, national news a lot of the times that might not be specific to your area, that this is one of those categories that information can really help you a bit with that timing. Make sure that you're not saying you're timing it to the market. Well, I'm waiting because they said interest rates are coming down, or I'm waiting for this market factor, unless you're talking to a local professional, a local real estate agent, a local loan officer that can really give you sound advice that maybe waiting a month or two or waiting a short time might be in your benefit for various reasons, or, just explaining the information to you, because the news is never going to be that source.
No, they're always going to be making it sound terrible. So here's like some examples of people, right? We've got the waiter, the one who's they're waiting. They're going to wait until rates drop. And maybe you wait a couple years before that happens, but what could happen in those couple years, right? Maybe home maintenance costs go up. Maybe you have to put a roof on in 2 years later, or maybe the HVAC goes out. I hate to say any of those things to happen, but, houses need maintenance, and maybe some big things end up being, happening in those couple years.
Yeah.
Maybe the neighborhood changes, or maybe
monthly costs of upkeep, hiring people to do things you can't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All of that factors.
Yeah.
In.
So what is the actual cost of waiting versus, a point or two on the interest rate?
Yeah.
The lifetimer, right? The single retiree who chooses to move closer to family, but is waiting to do that. So what are you missing? What are you missing there?
Yeah.
Are you missing watching your grandkids grow up?
Missing simplicity in your daily life so that you have that time with the grandkids?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are you spending your days doing upkeep and not, enjoying the family time that you could be having? So some of it isn't money. Some of it's not tangible things.
Yeah.
What else could you be missing?
Yeah, absolutely. How about the analyzer? They ran the numbers. They would pay more in interest, but they, could gain that better lifestyle sooner. But they decided that it wasn't quite worth it emotionally, and they're just, paralysis by analysis, and they're just constantly running numbers and not really ever just jumping in and choosing the life they want, and realizing that there's always, a financial cost to that, and just being okay with it.
Right.
I like this life better. I'm going to go
Live it.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
Not waiting to live it. Because just like we don't have the crystal ball about the market, we don't have the crystal ball about the time we have in our, here.
Yeah.
And so spending that time in your best possible way is what you should do.
Yeah.
So back to getting dreamy. We're going to tell you over and over again, because I really feel like it's the step that people miss the most. What is it you want? And then how is that going to fit into the decisions that you're making about timing?
Yeah, absolutely. Just reframing your decision. What would be better about your daily life if you moved sooner? What is the cost emotionally, physically, financially of staying where you are? What trade-offs are you already living with by waiting? And just really comparing that to that dream. And here's the reality. How do I move to that dream that I want?
Because I think, because we're creatures of habit, and we stop seeing really what's happening, we get to a place where we are living. Sometimes we see people who are living in situations that are just really not good, and they aren't seeing it. They aren't seeing it. They can't go upstairs anymore. They can't get to their bedroom. They're sleeping on the sofa now. They're, doing things that they're giving themselves outs for it, and not even realizing it because they are living it. So they're too close to it is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it happens slowly, and then it's drastic, but it happens so slowly you don't realize.
Yeah, and then they're like, it's fine that you're like, what? But so if that's you, figure out what's holding you back. We have lots of episodes on all kinds of things. Reach out to us if you really have questions. But, figure out what's holding you back if you're really in a situation that's not working for you and you can't figure out how to move forward.
Yeah. So, guide to decision making on this topic. Is your current home still the best fit for your needs? Do you feel physically and mentally able to manage a move if you started now? Honestly, that yes is going to get weaker and weaker the more that time goes by. For all of us, just moving myself, it's exhausting. Right. And it is. So the earlier you do it, the easier.
And there are move managers. Reach out to us if you have a need for that. If you feel like there's just no way that I can make that happen, we have people who can help.
Yeah. Do you have clear goals about what you want in your next home? That's that dream. Have you talked to the right people, agents and advisors, about your market options, your family included in that? And are you making decisions based on fear or hype, or have you been able to tune out that noise and just make that decision based on what is best for you, your family, and your situation?
Yeah. So if you have come to the realization that it's time, and you're not going to continue to worry about whether you're timing the market properly, but it's time for you, please reach out to us. Downsizingroadmap.com. We can connect you with a great agent that can give you great advice about your market and what needs to happen to get you moving into the next phase.
Yeah, we're excited to help you, and we will talk to you again next time. Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.